Hello, my name is Madison Flores, and I will be presenting Eren Jaeger, the military, and communication styles as shown in Attack on Titan. This presentation is about what informs communication and how it manifests. It's divided into 4 sections. There's perception and how it affects communication, rules and ambiguity as shown through verbal communication, violence through tactile communication, and empathetic listening. Attack on Titan is a Japanese anime. Pretty much you can summarize it by saying that there are, let's say, a few thousand people left on Earth and they are trapped within 3 walls. Outside of these walls, you have humanoid monsters who are trying to eat them. Some characters can also turn into smart version of these monsters, which is shown later in the presentation and how it affects communication as well. This is our protagonist, Eren Jaeger. He is one of the soldiers at this point who can turn into one of these titans, these mindless beasts. Starting the series, he's very brash. His communication style at this point, straightforward. Not a very active listener, but he has his goal, and his goal is to eradicate all titans and to save humanity, or what he thinks to be is the last of humanity. In order to do that, he joins the Survey Corps, which is a branch of the military in Shiganshina. That's the area of, that's the wall, that's what the wall's called. And their goal, the Survey Corps, is to pretty much go outside of these walls into expeditions outside in order to find out more about what's happening. So perception is the process of using the senses to acquire information about the surrounding environment or situation. Our characters suffer from a lack of information. They do not know what's happening outside the walls. They do not know why these monsters are here, but they know that they want them to die. And they know that they want them to, humanity to be restored. This is an example of what the monster looks like. As you can see, it's a very unique environment. We have these little strongholds here, and then 2 more walls inside. Of course, the rich live in the innermost capital, where the poor are forced to live, where they are easily captured. So they pretty much, when they're using their tools outside, communication is limited. It is a military, It is a military subdivision though, but because verbal communication is integral to figuring out what they're supposed to do. Here's one example of a character. His name is Erwin Smith. He uses verbal communication in order to rally troops and to inspire them, as this is a very dire situation and people are consistently dying. There's also the use of purposeful ambiguity. Because of the fact that there are different military groups going out and doing these expeditions, there are also people who want to stop these military groups, whether it be for personal interest or the interest of someone with more money than them. Characters like Erwin, who is a commander of the military, use ambiguity in order to suss out potential danger around them. So pretty much every word is intentional. And when they're unable to speak, we have nonverbal communication. The nonverbal communication is shown through flare guns, salutes, body movements, and combat. When they're out on the field, there's no technology. There's no walkies, there's no phones. They're stuck to using flare guns. And as medieval as it may seem, it works. Different colors represent different meanings. If you see a soldier shooting up a red flare gun, you know not to go there. If you see one shooting up a green flare gun, you know that it's safe to explore. This is an example of body movements. Eyes, the furrowing of the eyebrows. He goes from pretty much being rageful to being cold to just changing into something unrecognizable. Eren, that is. Salutes are shown through the military in order to show respect to their superiors. It emphasizes that respect. And combat, aka tactile communication, which is using force to emphasize your point. There's many instances of characters getting smacked around for being disrespectful. And there's one particular combat situation where These characters are fighting. This is Eren in his monster form, and someone who is suspected of being a mole. At this point in the series, we don't know who this is. But, as shown with her fist raised, her stance, her feet, the way her feet are placed, Eren is able to gauge who she is based off of just how she fights. So the use of nonverbal communication was very necessary in finding out who the spy of the series was. So, as I said previously, Eren is a very stubborn character who is not an active listener. He did not have much care for what his superiors thought or his closest friends. He only changes once he's able to, unlock the ability of empathetic listening. And this still, he's talking to a young boy of a different ethnicity and he's crying. They had just finished speaking and he was apologizing because he had spent so much time listening and understanding the enemy around him. He understood that nothing was what it seemed and the enemy isn't as clear-cut as monsters who are just roaming and eating people. In conclusion, a lot can be said without being verbally expressed, and it is shown through Attack on Titan. Eren Jaeger, our protagonist, uses different forms of communication, whether it be tactile communication, verbal communication, or other forms of nonverbal communication like grunts, laughs, points, in order to solve his goal in order to reach his goal of eradicating the Titans and saving his people. Do we have any questions?
So, just one question. That person who had the stance like this, I'm assuming that she was the only person that had that sort of stance?
Yes.
So it was this, okay, so it's
yes.
distinct. Okay.
So when they were in the troops training amongst themselves, hand-to-hand combat. They were ranked on hand-to-hand combat. Annie, that's her name, she was ranked at top 5. She not easy to beat. So, and she was smaller than everyone else as well, so she had to use her body weight in order to counteract certain hits. And so that ability of using her body weight and basically flipping him, I think is what happens in the scene, pretty much immediately reveals who she is. Plot is gone.
I have a question.
What's up?
So you talked about people getting smacked around and that being used as a plot device for communication. The scene with Levi and Eren very early on in the show, what did you think of it when you first saw it versus maybe your second, third time when you started to fully understand what was going on?
So what he's referring to is a scene in which Eren gets kicked around by his superior. That scene, when I first watched it, I thought it was kind of funny, and I didn't get why he was getting beat up. But later you realize that because he was just revealed to be one of these monsters, Levi had to be able to show his superiors that Eren was easily controlled. Thank you for listening.